Hey everyone, Thyworm here, back from holiday with a pilot video where I am trying out a build in Solar Cellfound and try to assess its viability, fun and purpose. It is a pilot because I don't know if this content works, so I would like very much some feedback on this, so please feel free in the comment section. The pilot covers the Ice Shot of Penetration Miner Deadeye, a build that can be found on Maxroll, created by Arrow. Link in the description. What attracted me to this build is the potential clear speed, the fact it is something completely different than Righteous Fire Chieftain, and I already had the transfigured gem from the lab. That saves you a lot of farming. Having the whole build available on Maxroll with a very detailed guide also helps. It wouldn't make sense to go over the whole build, of course, but I want to highlight at least a few aspects before we dive into the SSF side of things. The pros of this build are advertised as insane clear speed, which is true, although it does depend on your gear and I would say primarily on your bow. But yes, all the splitting arrows clear multiple screens given you have sufficient damage. It is easy to level using rain of arrows. It is easy to gear, which I found mostly to be true. Crafting a really good triple elemental damage bow in SSF, however, does require quite some investment and resources. And finally, a ranged playstyle which helps in surviving. I would personally add another, namely it is a one-button build. The cons are advertised as not being able to face tank bosses, which is definitely true. Even with decent gear, the build is rather squishy. The second con is related, saying it needs some items to feel tanky. I have decent items, I made it to level 98, so it's a somewhat decent tanky, but I would not consider this build to be very tanky. And the third con, we're really trying to find cons it seems with this build guide, is that it is not hardcore viable. Essentially, all three cons are the same. What is not mentioned, but what is definitely a con, is something you would immediately notice if you look at the footage. It's that you can't see shit. The whole screen is ice shot cones and you are completely clueless if a few orbs are headed your way until they explode in your face and kill you thanks to the other three cons. Prerequisites may be strange, but what I'm essentially doing with this chapter is listing the items I think are great to have in SSF already before you decide on this as your second character. Those items are, in my humble opinion, 1. A Fury Valve Amulet, which is a common drop. 2. A 6-linked lightning coil. 3. A 6-linked bow you can craft triple elemental damage on, so you have a smooth start in terms of damage when swapping. 4. A large 8 passive cluster jewel with 12% bow damage. And 5. 2 medium cluster jewels with 12% mine and trap damage. Reversely, if you have found some of these items and want to make a build with them in SSF, you can use this list. PoE Ninja is a source, of course, for this sort of thing, but I still find it hard to figure out builds without much additional context from that website. That might just be me. In the previous version of this script, I talked about leveling experience and progression and the swap towards the actual build quite a bit, but I decided I don't want to include it in the video. Leveling is such a small portion of the build after all, and twink leveling is easy. The progression is laid out step by step on Maxroll, and I followed all of that until around step 18 or so, when I stopped further evolving the character. I might push it a little bit further, but I reached level 98 and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Small self-plug before scarabs. Check the description for Google Docs on all my SSF stuff, account name, POBs, atlas trees, etc. There's a Discord link in there as well. I have a guild, Thy Guild, feel free to join in-game. And don't forget to subscribe, guys. Okay, back to the video. I think much more interesting are some of the choices I made in Solar Cellfound to give you an idea on how a build performs without having all the pieces, or perhaps having more pieces than the build suggests, for better or worse. But first I want to place a small disclaimer because I'm not great at making builds myself, so I mostly follow guides and then try improvising in SSF because you must. For example, the build guide suggests a Storm Shroud to become ailment immune, but that is a jewel you likely won't have in SSF. For the most part, I have followed the guide step by step. The only addition I made was an inspired learning, which I found. There are multiple div cards for this jewel, and the Atlas tree has the perfect setup for this jewel because an Inspired Learning mandates you have 4 notables in its circle allocated or it will simply not work. In this section of the Atlas tree, the build guide already allocated 4 notables, making it a perfect fit for the Inspired Learning. I'm farming some ritual with this thing, which spawns tons of rares, so I'm stealing plenty of modifiers, and for Legion it is also very solid. This, together with shrines, makes the character a lot tankier, plus the damage increase is significant too. Should I find a headhunter, which is hopefully bound to happen at some point, this will be even more fun. After reaching level 98, I still occasionally die, so I made a small adjustment and swapped out faster casting and blink arrow, which is for movement, and instead I'm using cast on death portal. Plus I replaced frost blink with flame dash, that's just personal preference. I would like to go over the gear that I have quickly, so you see what I managed to gather in SSF and what the build looks like as a result. I think gear is a decent indicator of solo self-found viability after all. I have upgraded the bow to a triple elemental damage bow with 1 additional arrow. I can't really figure out if it is better to have crit chance rather than an extra arrow. That's probably the case, but beggars can't be choosers, and this is solo self-found. The quiver mostly fixes my life and resistances. The helmet is not special at all, with additional fizz damage mitigation thanks to the Eldritch implicits on it. Otherwise, I really needed strength with this build, so 49 strength goes a long way. I have a lightning coil as the guide suggests. I also have shadow and dust, which is another suggestion from the guide. I'm really a big fan of Rampage on builds like this. It makes everything so smooth, plus the additional crit chance and multiplier, they do not hurt either. The boots are great from Betrayal, and the freeze and chill immunity allows me to take another Pantheon for more physical damage mitigation. There's the Fury Valve, which is a common drop. I'm actually using a mirrored ring in the left slot because it has decent resistances and a ton of accuracy, helping me to cap out on accuracy. This is something you would never do in trade, I don't think, but in SSF, again, beggars can't be choosers. The other ring is decent, but nothing special, and there is a Stygian Vise with a decent jewel, but again, it is very standard gear, I would say. So let's draw a conclusion. Assuming you have the prerequisites or are willing to farm them using this character, I think this build is simply great in solo self-found. All the uniques are easy to get for several leagues now, the other items aren't crazy either, and with just decent but nothing extraordinary, you have a fast mapper on your hands which destroys tier 16s, and sometimes they destroy you too. The guide itself offers around 15 more improvements, which so far I haven't taken as I don't have those items in solo self-found, like a Storm Shroud, but that doesn't prevent me from having a great time and making it to level 98. I have at the moment of writing around 40,000 effective HP, and that is without Inspired Learning buffs. More so, it is a fun playstyle. Mines still have that stigma that they are clunky, but at least in this build they're not clunky at all. You throw them quickly, they detonate automatically as well. It feels great and smooth, so don't let that be a turn-off or a negative. But most of all, I hope you had a good time watching this pilot video, trying out this new idea. Let me know what you think. Also, let me know if you have any suggestions. Subscribe and like for more PoE solo self-found guides. Thanks for watching and making it to the end. Love you all. See you soon. Bye bye.